Hello and welcome to Serpent Temple. This is the music podcast where we delve deep into the minds of musicians and artists using the art of Psycards, akin to tarot. Today we'll be talking to Sam Loynes, who's a prolific musician involved in Akercocke, Antichrist Imperium, Voices and Shrines. He's an incredible guy. Welcome to the podcast and enjoy. Thank you. So I'll show you where to put the cards.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we put the first one here face down.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be the closest thing to you, kind of informing who you are and where you're going. Second one goes here. Third one here. Fourth here. Number 5. 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll do these ones first, and then if we have time, we'll do one here, and 2 each side. So there'll be where you're coming and going, and these will be what's coming towards you in your life as well. I'm being really unclear about this, but we'll get there.
So,
oh my god.
Seems clear to me.
Yeah. It's relatively clear. So turn over the first card and we'll see what you get. Death! But it's inverted.
It was inverted initially. Right, okay. That makes a difference.
It does.
Oh wow, okay. Cool.
If they all come out inverted, then the deck's just upside down. So
yeah.
We'll see what happens. It might not be inverted, but I'll read you the death description, and if it rings true, then you can tell me what it brings to your mind. So the death card is described as a doorway that leads into a mysterious burial chamber, a skull-shaped hill. Flowers lead the path to the portal, but the mood of the card is somber. Death is the natural end of life, and the card symbolizes finality. The tomb brings reminders of resting places of the great heroes of mythology and carries with it an implication of the possibility of rebirth.
Right. I think really the first thing that springs to mind would be how much death is there's a constant barrage of death at the moment.
Definitely.
And I'm trying my best not to read news and things like that, but at the moment I can't really comprehend what's going on with the virus and the pandemic. And one of the sort of stark reminders is the tallies of all the various countries and global death rates. And it's something that I think, there was a time where I was a bit more perhaps positive on my outlook on the potential of death. But maybe of the last 6 months to a year, it's become a lot more of a negative perception. So in terms of just responding to that, the first thing that springs to mind is what we're currently going through, and the perception of death completely changing.
Is it the sheer volume of deaths that's made your perception change?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually. Of course everybody would want to die in a kind of peaceful way, free of anguish and long-lasting kind of pain or suffering, and I feel like, obviously with the unfortunate people involved, with the global pandemic, that is not the case. So it's something that is actually, it's like this kind of overbearing sort of blanket of a bit of fear, really, I suppose.
Are you starting to fear your own death in that case? Or?
I'm not a hypochondriac. I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. That's it. Got there in the end. But I feel like anybody that was, would be just like their worst nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But even for me, just this thing of like, oh God, I've got a slight tickle in my throat, and the next thing I know, oh, I've got a bit of asthma when I was a kid, and I'm scared of have I got it? Which I suppose the end play is okay. So you get it, and it's that kind of really small percentile, but it is that terrible thing, and
so roll the dice.
Yeah. So it's a tough one.
Okay. How do you think, could you apply that to music as well? Because, Akercocke went through a rebirth.
Yeah.
And
that was one of the...
talking about diminished fifth becoming shrines as well.
Yeah. Well, if you flip that, and I suppose I certainly don't feel like I'm going through a rebirth, but there is plenty of new stuff on the horizon outside of the aforementioned bands. But the rebirth of Akercocke was a hugely positive thing for everybody involved, and I was actually on the outside of that initial rebirth because it's always been Jason and David's and Paul's when he came back into the fold band, really, and so it was just so great to have my friends, getting that kind of spark in them again. Obviously, anybody that plays music knows that it's got a therapeutic nature, and of course, being absent, various parties being absent from the fold, which was completely necessary and understandable at the time. But obviously, as soon as you get back into that rehearsal space, they knew instantly it was a good thing. Then a few months later, they realised that the band was shit without me. So I came
that must have felt
back
good.
I came back in, and actually through that kind of tentative period, I would say that it's only strengthened my relationship with all of the guys in Akercocke, and now really, as much as it's the industry's so different and everything's so kind of different in terms of our workflow, for want of a better phrase, it is a really positive thing. The band is just we have a great time whenever we're meeting up, and I wish it was more. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Have you been able to do any form of rehearsing or writing during the lockdowns?
We had one rehearsal, or not so much a rehearsal, meet up. I think it was during one of the kind of interim, in between lockdown things, because we're all, take it seriously.
Of course, yeah. No, I meant remotely, not
Yeah. Well, no,
yeah,
exactly. We're all kissing each other and kind of hugging and
I see.
and then going around our old folks, because we're complete misanthropes, really. No, we just had the one, because our bassist actually on the newest bass, like the Spinal Tap thing with the drummers, isn't it? There's endless drummers. Our newest bassist is based in Ireland. So it's a bit more of a kind of have to arrange the rehearsal, the situation with that in mind. So in between when we could make it happen, we've had one in 6 months or so, and we just had such a good time, and then it was right, we need to make this happen. But then actually really we kind of got slightly more busy with the other bands. So Akercocke is busy with home recording basically and composing the new record, and I'll just look forward to sort of get back in the room playing the old stuff always.
Yeah, the last time I saw you played a New Year's Eve show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was literally before 2020 became 2020.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
It was an amazing show, actually.
Nice.
Is that the same bassist that you've got?
Yes.
For that
So
show? Okay,
it's I should have said Federico is our bassist. And he's someone again that I kind of brought into the fold, if you like, just because I suppose he's a bit younger, and we knew each other through playing shows and going to shows, and Fed is just a good guy and very creative and very energetic.
He has wonderful energy.
Yeah.
He's really happy, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously you as a fan of Akercocke, do you feel like it changed the dynamic a little bit?
On stage, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are always really happy. When in the current lineup, I've seen you 3 or 4 times now.
Yep.
You've always just been so happy. And it's
Good.
really wonderful to see.
Yeah. I mean, like it can be both a very, when things are a little bit more smooth, I think that joy comes through. I think also when things are less smooth and perhaps maybe even the vibe in the room's a bit kind of more intense sometimes, it can be. I wouldn't describe it as joyful. I would sort of describe it more as cathartic. And that is probably my favourite. I mean, you couldn't do it every night. You can do it for a tour for bloody God knows how many shows. But there has been a few shows where things are kicking off in the audience. Things are loud and oppressive on stage, and yet we're together. And it's kind of like it's like a difference between that extra 10% when you're kind of like doing exercise or something. I don't know. I think one example would be we did a show in Brighton.
We were there.
Were you there?
Yeah, we were there.
Front row. Yeah, so that was of recent times. That really is one where it's like, right, okay, so this is a small environment. It's sold out.
The stage is tiny.
Tiny stage, so like nightmare.
Yeah.
For a performance.
I think your laptop cables were starting to come out.
Oh yeah.
I think I had to help you put one back in.
Did you?
Yeah. That's all right. Always keeping an eye out.
That was key to the show. And it was just that sort of slight extra atmosphere that you can't quite put your finger on, and that was a superb show.
The set list was incredible for that show. It was one of my
favourite.
favourite
Old
set
school
lists.
stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah.
The old blasters.
One of my favourite things about Akercocke shows are Paul Scanlon's outfits.
Yeah.
They are incredible. He wears. How many cowboy boots does he own?
You'd have to ask him.
Okay.
But he's got a wide variety.
Yeah.
And they go from the kind of Clint Eastwood, slightly upturned eyebrow, kind of good, the bad, and the ugly, dusty, right the way through to like Whitesnake.
Yeah.
So it depends on his mood.
I was honestly amazed the first time I saw him walk out at the reunion show. I was like, "Who is that? What happened to the suit? This guy is." Yeah.
Well, you guys have got sort of in a way you're kindred spirits because you've got the hair.
We do. I'm too scared to talk to him because I'm worried I will, and I don't know. Like I just feel like we have to never talk to each other.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're so the same. I'm worried there'll be some kind of strange, like physical,
powerful,
like nexus, implosion, singularity. I don't know.
Implosion.
Yeah.
An implosion of forces, which I think could happen. There might also be a likelihood that you speak to him, and within sort of the first 2 minutes, he starts talking to you about like different types of guitar, guitar solos and stuff, and you're like.
And I'll be like vocal solos and vocal pedals, and we won't really like. There'll just be some kind of wall. Yeah, it wouldn't work out. Yeah.
Paul Scanlon is a amazing guitar player and probably one of the most committed guitar players, and he's evolved from those early days, which is like all of that really primitive stuff that you hear. It's a lot of Paul, you know, and now he's got into this kind of arena of like very diverse, musically like complex, almost virtuoso style kind of thing. And so if you sort of look at the body of work, then and it way precedes Akercocke actually. So if you wanted to see some of those other bands, I'm not going to remember their names off the top of my head, but he was in a band called Screaming Jesus and a few others. But he's he just is completely and utterly 100% committed to heavy metal.
Brilliant.
More so than any of us by a long way.
That's legit impressive. Like you all have incredible mastery of your instruments. Like I can't think of a band that has more than, usually a band has like one member that's like really good. Mm-hmm. It's like, the guy from, I can't think of anyone because I've said it.
Lars Ulrich from Metallica.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you guys. I'm not going to talk about Metallica.
I can't believe I disrespected Lars. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, no, but you guys, like, you all play with such ease and such mastery, and it's really clear in the music and also live. So it's really impressive to
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I wasn't meaning to just give you a compliment about asking
Well,
a
I'll
question.
take it.
Our cameras just released loads of air. Sorry, guys. No, that's just really fucking cool, man. It's like, it's not just Paul, you all come together with that, and it's like, it's impressive to have seen you guys all develop. I think that's why a lot of Akercocke fans are just so, like, loyal, is that we've seen you all just alchemically transmute into some other kind of level of music. So this is the next card.
Okay.
The Libido. What a surprise. Definite Libido, I feel like these are very on-brand cards for you.
Right, yeah.
So Libido is number 17 in the deck. Peacocks are seen flaunting themselves in luxuriant gardens where a snake creeps through the foliage. A fountain gushes up in the background and flowers blossom in beauty to the fore. Libido is a Latin word for pleasure and has been used by psychologists to describe the upsurge of energy that is channeled into the sexual drive, the arts and other human activities. The card thus stands for freedom and particularly sexual pleasure. The snake can be seen as either the serpent in the Garden of Eden or as another joyous manifestation of the life force. The card also implies an awakening awareness of the self and psychic force of the Kundalini.
Wow. Sounds like my average Tuesday evening. Funny, because you mentioned that the first thing that I thought of was a friend of mine has just moved out of London, and I think that this is something that's happening a lot, you know, maybe as some of my friends who are my age are getting a bit older and London becomes an impossibility. But the reason why I mention it is because he's moved to a country house and he has peacocks.
Oh, wow. Holy moly.
Like 2 peacocks that live there. And so I'm there in my kind of flat in Peckham and, you know, ticking away.
Wow.
And he's putting up these pictures of these amazing peacocks and like this beautiful house that he lives in now with this lovely, he's got a new baby and his wife and whatnot, and he's a lovely chap as well, and I just think that would be nice, you know. I know that's somewhat of a you know, segue, or not a segue, kind of something different from the subject of the card, but
I would also feel libidinous for a country house.
Yeah.
That's something
certainly.
definitely that I think a lot of people who live in London would be horny for is a house.
Yeah, that's true.
Full stop, yeah. That's really interesting.
One thing that springs to mind about the sort of countryside, you know, what you've just said there, is the Wicker Man, you know, and how when you think about that movie and the kind of, you know, the Edward Woodward character, who I suppose is very suppressed and more from a city. I can't really remember where he came from. Maybe it was Glasgow or somewhere where he came from in from the film. Anyway. And obviously he comes to this sort of like open, beautiful, lavish environment, insular, and completely free of repression, and that springs to mind with this idea. And I do think that actually being in touch with nature, you know, there's a lot to be said for that, and I think that there's a definite constriction that comes with living in a city, you know, and I've learned that now the hard way, sort of being in London about 11 years I think it's been. And whilst I think that there's a lot of kind of like sexuality about London, I think a lot of it's quite surface, potentially, and maybe the kind of getting back more in touch with nature side of things is an avenue of which to kind of be a bit more kind of at one with another person. I don't know.
That's a really interesting take, because there's definitely an association with London with like a very particular kind of sexuality, of like almost one that's like more like consuming.
Yeah.
Of like, you know, like you say, surface level. You've got things like Torture Garden here, and you can just go and, you know, swipe left, right, I don't know which one it is, and find someone very easily. But in the countryside, I suppose, not only do you have to work to find someone who has the same interests as you, there's not going to be like a Camden underworld to like wander into and
There's so much
bump into
choice.
someone. Yeah,
This is
it's
the thing.
too much almost.
It's too much.
It's overwhelming and it's chaotic, and I think people here also, because you're so lonely, surrounded by so many people, you're so lonely, I think people reach out and try and find connection in the wrong places.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like, you know, obviously it's not an exact science, and there's plenty of kind of like real amazing interactions that happen on that kind of romantic level that are happening daily. But I would say that what has definitely been within my kind of outlook of London is a pretty kind of, you know, empty pursuit of kind of almost, there's a lot of one-upmanship as well with regards to that. Numbers and things like this, and I'm by no means a one of those people that engages with that. I try not to or whatever, but like, you know, as you interact with people, perhaps I have always got a sense that, well, we're just sort of like doing this for fun, and we're sort of like meeting up for fun. It's sort of like kind of crazy, and like, who knows whether I'll ever see you again kind of thing. And there's a brilliance to that. And actually I don't in any way downplay the sort of benefits of things like one night stands or whatever, but it is ultimately dangerous territory which can lead you potentially you know, a bit in the empty environment as things feel empty, rather than a more fulfilling long-term thing. You know, and there's something a bit more long-term about nature, something a bit more quick, you know, about city environments.
We don't have time for nature here, I suppose. Yeah, we can't. There's no hanging around. There's always. It's funny because when you're in the city, I always feel a sense of urgency. Not necessarily in the terms of the libido. That would be very distressing most of the time.
Oh, I do.
Well, fair enough. Different strokes for different folks. But yeah, like I think the sense of time that you feel, you can see time moving so quickly, buildings falling down and being built like within a day sometimes, and you know, you're seeing all these people around you. You never see the same person again. But in the country, you have a sense of space.
Yeah.
You see the same people every day, and even if you don't, you see the same things every day, and you see it changing slowly, and it's a lot more comforting. And I think
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I feel like if I was in that situation, I'd feel the stability would mean I wouldn't necessarily need to go to those places. But I think there's definitely a space for, as you say, like a healthy exploration of sexuality.
Yeah. It's just that there seems to be. It's very easy to go into the impatience, you know, impatient sort of environment within London and cities in general, really. So yeah, you know, you've got to be. I would say it's, you know, being a bit aware of, okay, how fulfilling is it that this path that I'm taking, and so with such stimuli, you know, right in front of you all the time, you get very much kind of hooked into that. And I feel like, you know, obviously at some point, I've certainly, you know, getting to a certain age or whatever, it's like you've got to step back and feel like, is this it? Because my ego is certainly kind of like being fed a lot, but is that the best thing? Yeah.
It's really interesting because I remember discovering Akercocke as a teenager, and like there's a lot of tits in Satan.
Oh yeah.
There's a hell of a lot of tits in Satan, and like there's something I really have always enjoyed about the band is that it's always kind of been there's not been toxic.
Yeah.
And like
well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean it's hard now in 2020 because you know standards are very high and people are rightfully so, in my opinion, like very sensitive to certain representations of women.
Yeah.
But I feel like somehow it's almost unlikely that it would have aged so well. But I've always had such a like positive experience with the like what feels like a kind of celebration of women as opposed to an objectification of them.
I feel like, I mean, it's great to hear that reflected because I've given that sort of some contemplation over the recent years as these things have quite rightly come to the forefront, and knowing the guys, you know, and we're all on a very similar wavelength, you know, and basically you hit the nail on the head. It's kind of like, you know, it's a wonderful embracing kind of full immersing of the counter person, and in our case it is the female. I think, I mean, like, for instance, one film director that springs to mind is Stanley Kubrick, and a film like Eyes Wide Shut, you know, not to say that we're in the same league in terms of genius, but you know, when you think about that and his absolute devotion to the female form within that movie, it is an appreciation, it is a fascination, it is it's hopefully an understanding position to have, although somewhat sort of, or trying to understand. And so with Akercocke, there's never been an air, or voices, or any of it, there's never ever been an air of kind of one-upmanship or anything like that, which I mentioned before. I mean, I think with voices there's a little bit more of a tension there, maybe. You know, it's a little bit more of a male trying to decode male insecurity. A big influence of ours was Graham Greene's The End of the Affair, that novel. And that's kind of the best representation of the kind of anxiety-driven male mind trying to decode the female goddess that's in front, that's just the kind of hopeless dream, you know. But with Akercocke, it's certainly just this total worship, really, you know. So yeah, it's good to hear that reflected back, that, you know, that it's aged well. I mean, that's great to say.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I don't know how, if you'd released that stuff today, how it would have gone down. I think
it would be a bit old hat. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I feel like things have moved on, and that was what it was, and
it's a snapshot of the time.
But it was a positive snapshot of the time. And it's just all this, you know, talk. But it's funny because obviously within metal there's often quite a lot of difficult interpretations of this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and I think you have to take a lot of it with a pinch of salt, though, if I'm right, but it goes way overboard, man.
It gets old after a while of seeing the same music video of, like, oh, the woman's being tortured for no reason,
right.
and the same song of somehow. Yeah, I think there needs to be not necessarily an understanding of women, but, like, I think some people just really get lost in the same cliches.
It's like that fucking Spinal Tap thing where, you know, they can't understand why their front cover wasn't allowed, right? And the other band, whatever the big band of the time was allowed. It's because the front man of that record was being tortured by the women, whereas Smell the Glove, it was towards the woman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so clever. There's such a fine line between, you know, being an idiot and being a genius, or whatever it fucking says.
The irony is, I can't actually think of a band that's even done something like that, where it's the woman, like, you know, where the man's being objectified, or it's like the male and the female gaze, if there even such a thing exists. I'm not a theorist when it comes to these things. But yeah, like that's an interesting thing, and I found it interesting that the band have also, like, kind of moved away from that in, like, Renaissance and Extremists.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, again, obviously the guys were the main driving creative force, obviously, behind all that, and so I can sort of come in from a sort of live side, but, you know, from what they wanted to do in terms of the iconography of that record, I think it was far more embedded within, like, their own struggles personally.
That really comes across.
So it was totally a complete reversal of the more, should we say, hammer horror, you know, worshipping stuff of the.
It was like a loss of the female at that point in the album, almost, like.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
There's, like, a great sense of loss and emptiness, like in a beautiful way.
Well, I don't know how intentional that was, but now that you say it, it's like there's no real themes of of women, or obviously the Satan side of things had completely been eradicated by that point. Any notion of that? And so I think, really, to be honest with you, the last record was a complete turnaround in terms of any themes, as you quite rightly say. So in fitting with that, women didn't come up really.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
No.
I think it all musically flows so naturally, and you don't. I'm not like, oh, but where's my Satan intent?
yeah.
Some
Although a
people
lot of
might
people
have
were
said-
like that.
They were, and that really annoyed me when it came out because they were not listening to the music at that
Yeah,
point.
exactly, and that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
So, the guys, and Jason and David's exploration with the lyrical themes was more personal and more, if for want of a better phrase, real life, surrounded real life within, maybe. I can't speak for them, obviously, but that is the truth, I think. Whereas in sort of previous years, as you say, it was more of a kind of fantastical thing that revolved around the kind of Hammer aesthetic, and that's it in a kind of nutshell, really.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely, you can see on the covers the film influence sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Which we always have throughout all of our bands,
Definitely.
Totally.
Yeah, like the T-shirt you shared the other day with like the
Yeah.
keyhole.
Yeah, the keyhole. I love that one. Yeah.
It's so cool. There's always a sense of like watching, a vision of like interaction and like viewing from a place that's not in the reality necessarily
yeah.
of like what you're putting out there, which I find.
Through the keyhole thing.
Yeah, like a voyeurism. But
Yeah, which actually is something that I think Voices is completely obsessed with, to be honest. Yeah, voyeurism is a big part of our thing.
I think being a Londoner, you're just a voyeur all the
Totally.
time.
When I'm on the top, I mean, this is terrible, isn't it? When I'm on the top floor of the bus, I'm just, particularly when I used to live in posher parts of town, and I used to go out Chelsea way, and I just used to look into these £1 million houses going like, who the fuck are you, man? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I see how they've done their drapes, that's a nice sofa. I do that on the train, I'll look at people and be like, I think you're a marketing associate.
That's how boring it actually is. Whereas I'm like, what Russian sort of embassy do you work for?
Yeah, I love like trying to decipher who people are. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the next card.
Thank you.
Birth. Oh wow, Birth, Death and Libido. That's really...
Christ, they're heavy hitters.
That's a narrative right there. How
Can I have
interesting.
your bottle thing? Yeah, thank you.
That's me.
Bottle openers, as otherwise known.
This is our linguistically advanced podcast.
Linguistically challenged.
We are linguistically trying.
Thanks for the beer. Do you want a beer?
We tried. Okay, number 15, Birth. This is a really libidinous looking card as well. New life is seen springing forth from the womb, the plant making a new green shoot with droplets of fresh dew under a morning sky. The card stands for the natural coming to birth of new ideas, a new hope, a new person entering the closed world of your life. It is a card of spring and psychological growth with the promise of new beginnings.
Well, that sounds nice.
It does.
I think this period that we've been through and continue to be kind of surrounded by at the moment, hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel, but I think that it has both been that horrible challenge and it brings you down, but then for me personally it has opened up some doors. And it's as simple and almost as boring and as prosaic as saying, excuse me, I had the time to be able to focus on some stuff, musically speaking particularly, that I otherwise might have not have been able to. Reason being, I didn't have to go to my part-time job, so that opened up the half of the week that I didn't then otherwise have. And so either you kind of completely got rolled over by this pandemic lockdown furlough period, or you utilise the time, and don't get me wrong, I had a lot of downtime as well, but I utilised the time and I have been very musically active outside of heavy metal, and there's been heavy metal as well, but outside of heavy metal, and I'm pleased to say that there is some very interesting different stuff in the very near future, because of it's only taken a fucking global pandemic to make me do it, but again, I know it's difficult to always sort of tie back to the pandemic thing, but I just think it's just so overwhelming. I can't not say that really this is the thing that is dictating almost everything at the moment, from a path side of things for me, mentality side of things, and either you completely fall flat from it, or you at least come out with some positives. And I'm happy to say that out of all the negatives, and I can assure you that there is some positives, so some new paths. Yeah.
So when those new things happen, where can we find them?
It's not out yet.
Okay. We'll just have to wait and see what is birthed from the womb of Sam Loynes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay.
You can cut that if you think it's a bit too. I don't know what the word is.
No, it's because you said womb and loins together.
Oh my god, you are the man of birth.
You should keep that in.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I never realised.
I never even thought of your name that way,
Wow.
I didn't even connect.
You have a fertile name. You're such a creative person, and like all these like fertility things
It is
coming at
Dutch. It comes from a Dutch, so it's spelled Loynes, which is a very odd spelling, and most people can't pronounce it, and sort of lions and lions, blah blah blah, because I think they're used to Lyons, right?
Yeah, the French.
Exactly. But yeah, it's loins, and it's Dutch, and it's from like fishermen or something.
Ah, so you may come from like seafaring trader.
I believe so. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
On the dad's side. Yeah.
If we get the voyage come up, then
Yeah.
we know it's confirmed. The spirits have confirmed it. So the next card is going to be this one.
Okay.
The Tower. That's a really fun card.
Tower Hamlets.
Tower Hamlets. I used to live near there.
Did you?
Oh my goodness, I did.
But you also lived in Peckham as well.
I was born in Nunhead. I moved to
cool.
Woodside Park, East Finchley, Potters Bar, Stepney Green. I kind of spent a lot of time in Kew. I've lived somewhere else.
That's great that you navigated like a nomad, but within London.
Indeed.
Oh, that's
I've
cool.
been living out of a suitcase for the majority of my adult life. It's been a ride.
That's cool.
The Tower. A castle stands on a hillside without a moat or a visible door. Proud, stern and unyielding, the symbol represents achievement gained in the face of adversity and reflects sometimes the arrogant conscious mind repressing the unconscious mind beneath it. It can often presage the pride that goes before a fall. It can also stand for male sexuality. There's a running theme here.
Yeah, well, yes, the struggles of the ego are present, I think, and even, by no means are any of my sort of projects like huge bands or anything like that, but it is, we are lucky enough to sort of occasionally have these short bouts of very amazing things in front of us, kind of thing, and being treated as, it goes from one side of getting like a plate of nuts for dinner at like a shit venue in a Dog and Duck in Nunhead, right the way through to, we were talking before about Hellfest and these festival experiences that you get, and in Europe in particular, which I think is a lot more of a hedonistic environment. Obviously Europe's so big, but like, certain areas of Europe, France is a good example where, basically, you drink, your food, your openness, your everything, the people, it's just straight away like, it's very different to the kind of slightly more
the crossed arms and the
crossed arms
being
of the
very,
UK proper and kind of repressive little island that we live in, or suppressive, I should say. But the ego does come through, and sometimes you have to kind of step back and go like, well, how lucky am I to have these small episodes within my life that I can kind of behave in this terrible, terrible way.
The Tower card is usually a bit of a mystery one because there's no door to the tower. So it's more of a like, Do you let people in? Do you not let people see you? Do you prefer to have boundaries? Or are you someone who prefers to conceal yourself away?
I feel like it's a double-edged sword to a degree, because obviously, you know me, I like to talk to people and I like to, socialise within reason, and I'm not kind of like the guy in the shadows in the back, However, from a purely kind of like interpersonal point of view, I find myself being always very reserved, and I have no interest in kind of exposing myself. I think this is not uncommon for anyone really, but I'm not an open book to anyone really, and that's a conscious thing, but also something that's just in my nature. So yeah, there is no, it's not obvious what may be lurking underneath, and it's not obvious to me a lot of the time, but I find it difficult to be transparent. Yeah.
That's interesting. I think that's a common card that I see. Maybe it's just because the deck isn't shuffled very well, or
Could be.
it could be that, or it could just be that I think a lot of people aren't always so aware of how their unconscious and their conscious interacts.
Yeah.
Because that's usually what the door is seen to be. Or the lack
I'm
of.
now trying, I've just, over the last kind of like month now, I've been doing transcendental meditation actually.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I love meditation.
So I'm by no means, because I have like a really overactive mind basically, so I can't switch off the constant thoughts, but I'm trying, and even when you get those little tiny, even 10 seconds it might be, of quiet, or when you go outside of somewhere, I have already felt that it's a good thing, and I'm going to keep it up, and I hope that through more practice I will become better at it.
Yeah, it's definitely a practice thing. It's utterly mental when you're trying to get inside and outside of your head at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much a mind. Let's turn over this card, I swear.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's a mind.
It's the beast.
I can I swear? I think I can.
Yeah,
You can swear. I'm just.
This isn't on like BBC.
I wish. Can you imagine?
They swear all the time now.
I think you've got to. I remember I knew a writer for the BBC, and apparently you've got to do like swear word negotiations. So you can have one cunt an episode. Sorry.
Yeah.
But you can have like 5 fucks.
Yeah.
So you can choose. You can like try and negotiate. Oh, I want to throw in a C word. But then you have to take out like a shit here and a fuck there, and
Well, it's worth it because
that's an impactful word.
it really is.
Yeah.
So this is the beast. I mean, Christ, is this set up or something?
Honestly, I didn't. We saw you shuffle the cards.
I thought I did a reasonable job.
Honestly, it freaks me out sometimes how accurate these can be to the people that are using them. And there's the artwork on this card is gorgeous.
Can I have a look, please?
Please, yeah.
Thank you.
It's a big red lizard dragon. Is that funny? It's a broken cameraman. There's a big red lizard dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Number 30 feet. Number.
The corpse in Big League.
You're gonna have so much work to do for the editing.
No, I'm leaving this in.
God damn it. Okay. My linguistic advancement continues. Number 33. A dragon bars the path, fearful and malevolent. The characteristics of the dragon represent the challenge of facing up to evil. It stands for confrontation with the powerful, dark forces of our unconscious mind, also for the bad temper and spiteful side of our natures, or that of others.
Christ. Yeah, I mean, I think I haven't really got much conflict in my life at the moment with regards to other people. To be honest, there's no obvious example of that, but I feel like, I am definitely grappling, and this is not unusual for me, but it's kind of like grappling of the difficulties that the situation has embedded. There was always there, but I felt like I've been really quite healthy for a good few years, and living life to its fullest, to be honest. And then all of a sudden, I'm actually having quite a lot of conflict within my own self. one of the ways to kind of try and decode that and cope with it is obviously music. So
Beautiful.
there's a positive out of it, I suppose, but it's not very pleasant. I mean, that's the thing with the creative process. It's such a, I feel like with those people, I think everybody's really creative in their own way, almost. Maybe not everyone, but most people. But I feel like the creative process, when it's really at the forefront, is actually quite an unpleasant thing,
Yeah.
and can be quite an unpleasant thing for both the person, exhausting, but then also for people around them.
Definitely.
That's not always the case, but it is definitely, if you're doing something with real validity maybe, and it's not just kind of theatre, which is great as well. There's a lot of bands and musicians and poets and blah blah that do theatre, and I love that. But when something's like got real conviction, fuck me, that's quite scary.
Is it harder when it's more personal to you, what you're doing?
No, because I'm sort of a narcissist probably, and so that when I'm one of the very few ways that I'm actually able to kind of express what I want to express to people and have them respond in the way that I kind of want them to respond a lot of the time is just through music and that. So yeah.
That's interesting. Like, how do you find that manifests?
The purest way that it manifests is actually outside of the band context. Within a band, it's kind of like this, collective of creative kind of sparks, and then you hopefully reach this kind of synergy. Often that synergy, the roots to that synergy are often very turbulent, but for me, when it manifests in its kind of most purest form is just when I'm doing my own music that's untarnished. I know it sounds like I'm getting on the back of my band members, because that's not what I mean at all, but for something that's like with true conviction and it's just basically about me, the only way that that's achieved is that it's a song or a piece of music that's holistically taken care of by me from beginning to end. Yeah.
Yeah, that's... I find that, like, there's a lot of beasts in the self when you're being creative, because you're not always yourself, I find, personally, when you're writing, and also in the industry, and everywhere. You get them at shows, I think you get them in... When you're trying to email someone, sometimes there's a beast. I don't know, yeah, it's interesting to think about in a musical context too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two big differences there that you've alluded to, which is the more kind of musical environment and creative environment, which to me, the argument is that fully me then? These things that I'm saying, like this song that I think that best represents me and all the kind of like facets of me. And I'd say, yeah, maybe that is it. Whereas with regards to representing yourself within the industry and trying to kind of do that thing, it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, there's a part of me that I'm very much myself when I kind of go out and want to, make an impression, but ultimately it is more of a kind of theatre. So, that's the kind of similar parallel to what I was saying before musically, but just in yourself, it's like, right, okay, we're going to go to this show. Oh, I'm lucky enough to sort of have a backstage pass or something. I know whoever's going to be there. You're not going to be as natural as we are, because we've known each other for years. You go up there and you do this, you do that. Sometimes you behave like an idiot. Sometimes you behave like whatever. It's all a bit of something.
Yeah.
It's not quite real.
Exactly.
And it's nice when you do. And I try to be as real as possible. Christ, like I'm not. That sort of, you see phonies and they're often there, but it's actually served me quite well to kind of just be me.
People know what they're going to get.
Even if it's a form of me, if you like. They know what you're going to get, yeah. Bit of a fucking maniac. It's a bit too drunk, probably. But, it's a difficult one. But the phonies stick out, man,
Yeah. You can't get away with it. And something like I think maybe in certain industries you can like get away with a surface level of knowledge, but if you have a conversation with someone like that, it quickly becomes clear that they want something.
Yeah. I don't mind that even. It's like, that's also fine, that's a part of the thing, but it's like, let's not kid ourselves, this isn't really what I'm here for. It's like, okay, I'm having a good time now and I'm glad that maybe we've made this connection and maybe something will happen in the business sense in the future, but ultimately I'm here to sort of just be a devil.
Really, we were the beasts we met along the way. That's brilliant. This is the next card.
Okay, this one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Fool. Wow, it's like every time we talk about something related to that thing comes up.
Yeah.
The Fool, every single music person I've ever done this with always brings up the Fool, including me, including Shem. We always, it's the musician's card, I always say this.
Yeah.
Not because we're fools, but
I don't know, really.
We are a bit foolish for I don't know. I guess you have to have a level of foolishness to play music in the way we do. Like to go into I'm just going to play heavy metal and... I
mean, particularly heavy metal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could just go make wibbly wobbly electronic music and get really rich on Twitch or something. But no, we're choosing to play buttfuck pub shows.
I've been there.
I know you can relate to that, many years in the past, but I'm sure you've played those shows. And the Fool plays his own tune as he walks off the edge of a cliff. So piping merrily along the cliff top away from his house, perched perilously on the edge, the Fool dances along, skipping over the roots of the tree. This character can stand for folly and stupidity of the sort that brings so many ventures to ruin in oneself and in other people. It can also symbolize the holy fool, the person who can tell us truths of a sort which a wise man cannot. There can also be the sense of someone playing their own tune through life.
I definitely think it's in relation, straight away in relation to the heavy metal thing, really. Because me and Dave often joke about the idea of we're going to make all this music and it's going to be got this incredible stuff that's going to go on and blah blah blah. So no one's going to fucking hear it. It's hardly anyone's really good. We're still going to be sort of making music down at our parents' garages and stuff like this and blah blah blah. And to be honest, there's actually a real I do feel like perhaps I've got some other fingers in different pies, but coming up certainly. But at the moment with my kind of heavy metal career, I don't regret it for a second. However, the amount of effort and time and suffering and joy and madness and all the rest of it, it doesn't equate on the other side in terms of stability, life progression, but that in the normal sense. So therefore, we always joke about being the fool in that sense. But I also do say to some of my band members that just that one experience that you may get with somebody that is way outside of you're batting above your average, and you've got this incredible experience in whatever city or in whatever festival or whatever, and it might range from sort of silly, crazy experiences to incredible human interaction or whatever. Just one of those experiences is worth a whole lifetime of boring 9-to-5 success, career, path, stability. Just one of them. There's been more than one. So we're lucky, and so they're kind of well, we're kind of foolish for doing what we do, but we find it funny.
I think we're more foolish in the eyes of others for doing it. I think someone working 9 to 5 doesn't realise that they're in hell sometimes.
They might have the mortgage, they've got the house, and they've got the stability, they've got the family, and they're happy, and I think that's great. And that's there's a real, I actually envy a lot of that.
Sometimes. I do sometimes as well, yeah, really. Or with a day job and thinking I'm going to go home and write for hours after this. Yeah.
But I revert back to that idea of just one of those experiences. Like that time that I threw up in a bin outside whatever. Outside whatever place. And they were laughing at me and it was on the road or whatever. Or, I should say something about it. Or, you know, when you're hanging out with some of the bands that you used to listen to.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, you know, fucking hell, you know, you know, what am I doing here? I'm sort of like, you know.
Well, that's like us now.
Yeah.
Right.
Just describing
what's happening right now.
That's nice. I once hung out with Iggy Pop for a bit.
That's really fucking
Because
cool.
that was one that I don't usually go on about things. I mean, with regards to sort of name dropping or whatever within the industry. But I was very lucky to have that experience, very lucky to have the experience that I did with Motorhead and Lemmy.
Wow.
So luckily, when I was growing up, and you know, he's still one of my good friends now, one of my very close friends, his father was the owner of the production company. He used to look after Motorhead. And so I would, as a 16-year-old Iron Maiden wearing t-shirt with fucking mullet, teenager kind of thing, and I would get invited to dinner with Lemmy, you know.
Oh my
and
God.
like, you know, hang out at the shows and stuff. And then as I got a bit older, sort of loved a bit of gear in here and there. And Lemmy, we got on quite well. And you know, obviously he meets like 150 people a day, was what he did, you know. But you know, was very, very lucky to have those experiences. And I think, like, yes, we may be fools because we're not making any fucking cash out of this shit, and it's not like a career path. But you know what? Like, I got to smoke Lemmy's fucking Marlboro Reds because he would just pass them to me and he didn't even ask.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
It's
Damn.
like, well, you know.
Matt Pike would kill to be you.
It's the Motorhead thing's always crazy because, like, people really go mad. Like, obviously, as I say to you, like, I mean this. I don't try and say it about, like, to be sycophantic or to be name dropping or anything like that. But when I mention some of my amazing experiences that I was so lucky to have with Motorhead and Lemmy in particular, everyone from like Slash to Barney from Napalm, whoever you may, you know, mention. They're like, tell me about Motorhead, tell me about Lemmy, like, what did he do here, what did he do? I'm like, oh, I'm fucking lucky, man.
That is
You know.
really fucking at a young age where that kind of thing even means so much more.
So much more. He
Yeah.
taught me a lot, man.
Really.
He wasn't like trying to or whatever, but like I always thought that like I never saw Lemmy be like rude or like horrible to anybody pretty much. I mean, he could be apparently occasionally, but like, you know, he's obviously a professional, so occasionally things piss you off, and you've been on the road for fucking 6 months, no wonder you get angry sometimes. But for the large part, he was just this beautifully responsive, polite gentleman to anyone that he would meet. And I feel like any fucker that's going to be a dickhead in the music industry, well, you know what? You can fuck off, man, because Lemmy did it his way, and
Yeah.
that taught me. You know, I tried to be a good guy because of that. I'm trying to be a good guy anyway, but like, if Lemmy's going to be cool, then you've got no right to be an arsehole. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I know Lemmy actually like saved our cameraman Shem's mum
Oh yeah.
from being
Yeah,
harassed.
she used
at the
to
electric
know him back in the day.
Yeah.
And there was some guy who was harassing her in a club, and like he was kind of walking past. My mum was kind of like motioning at him, and he's like, and then he's like, you know, oh, you're right. And then basically Lemmy walked over, and his way of diffusing the situation was to push the bloke off of my mum and then just snog my mum. And then my mum pushed him off, and she's like, "For fuck's sake, I just wanted you to like have a word." And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." You know, like he was, you know what I mean? Like he was just kind of like, "Oh, okay."
It's a good story, I like that.
Yeah, it's a great
It's
story.
like chivalry done Lemmy style.
Yeah.
Its own brand.
Yeah, and it's still like not like creepy. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean?
He
Yeah.
really was, you know. I mean, yes, he was a womanizer, obviously, but and had many women, but ultimately, you know, he was raised by his mum and entirely, and just had this ultimate respect for women, ultimate, just complete fascination and wonder and respect, whilst also enjoying life. Do you know what I mean? Not being too serious about it. Yeah.
Legend.
Total legend, respect.
Yes.
Respect.
Respect. I'm gonna count. 6, 7. This is the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Cave. Birth, cave, tower, death. Okay, number 39. A character is prostrate, facing away from the light. Don't laugh.
You almost said
Prostate.
That would have been an easy mistake.
The prostate card.
Prostate cancer. I'm glad I didn't get that. Fuck yeah.
Doctor's appointment, like,
Yeah,
straight away.
exactly, yeah.
A character is prostrate, facing away from the light in the gloomy recesses of a deep cave. This card stands for depression and despair. It symbolizes withdrawal into the self as a result of pain or grief. It can also mean introversion or loneliness, and acts as a reminder to the inquirer that the light awaits after a period of healing darkness. I mean, Rona, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, I'm very transparent with anybody really about this thing because I think this is the way it is, but I do suffer from depression, have done for many, many years, badly, and one of the challenges of the coronavirus kind of pandemic has been that it's manifested in a different way that I've never kind of experienced before, and I remember thinking like, oh, I'll take a year out from the music or something, or, you know, playing live, I'm talking, right? That'll be fine, that's good actually. I've had so much of this kind of fun over this last kind of couple of years, there's no bother, I was fine. A couple of weeks into it, it was just, it all just came, well, I say a couple of weeks, maybe like more like 2 months to be honest, but it all just came crumbling down. And it's, you know, as I say, my depression has been since I've been a little kid, right the way up to now, and I think with Corona, it has just brought things to the surface that are just really, really, really challenging, but in maybe a different way, you know. And it's so obvious to me how the outlet of this interesting show that we might have in a few weeks, or you know, a recording here, show there, this, that, there, blah, 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 going to see my friend's band there, this band are touring, oh, I'm going to go see them there, all this stuff. Didn't think that really played any massive part of why I was coping with depression and the other challenges so well for a few years now. And then this has happened, next thing I know, a few months into it, holy shit, really heavy, really heavy.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that there's obviously light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously with the corona things, I think there is, and I choose to believe that the vaccine is a good thing, and that it is going to be something that really moves the whole thing on. Not quickly, but it will do. And obviously I'm hoping that in tandem with that, you know, my well-being also is, it's not the be-all and end-all. Corona is not the full reason why, but it is the thing that maybe if we can eradicate that, maybe it'll become easier.
It's harder to cope in ways that you're used to if you... I don't know, I have the same thing for the same length amount of time, and I've always... Obviously music is one of the best ways that I guess both of us have found to deal with it, because it's not only a distraction but it's an expression. Yeah. And you get a sense of connection, you're not so alone in it. But I think, like the cave, you know, you're alone in this space and you don't know when you can come out, you don't know when the light is, I think the ambiguity was the kicker. Of not knowing if next week everything's going to be fine. Or if next week everything's going to be, the economy's going to collapse even more, and you know, if someone's going to come knocking on your door, the army's around the corner, or you know, all that fake stuff that was the hysteria. Bless you. I'm sorry to hear that though.
Well, I mean it's fine. I mean it's okay. Thanks for saying that, but you know, it's an ongoing struggle, and you're right. The sort of unpredictability doesn't play in well with anybody that has, I think, anxiety, which is a very common symptom of depression and mental health in general, and mental health problems in general. And so obviously any trigger, you know, is going to make it worse. And Corona, let's just call it a trigger. It's not like a you know, complete reason why it's happening, but it's a trigger for many people, and myself included, going through what is a very, very fucked up, challenging time. And you feel like sort of, I shouldn't be so absorbed by it, or when there's people that unfortunately are falling to this thing, and I'm lucky, in touch wood, I haven't, and all that, but it has this huge, I remember when the first reports of people are really worried about how the mental health's going to go, and I've sort of suffered from depression for years. I'm thinking, oh fuck, what are they on about? Well, they can't. Yeah, exactly. They can't stay inside for a bit. Well, it's going to be great. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Oh, so wrong. So wrong. So all that we can do, I hope, and this is why, rather than just shutting off with your question, I just think it's more like, in any small way, to speak as much as you can about things like this, even if sometimes that doesn't help either, but because I'm not one of these people that I think that it always helps, but yes, being completely shut off about it is bad. However, everybody has their own needs, and it might be somebody that just wants to talk to a specific person in a specific environment. I personally I've given up on giving a shit about what people think, and you know what, I'm a depressed motherfucker and I've suffered from it for years, and it will probably be with me for the rest of my fucking life, and I'm happy to kind of help those that suffer with it as well if they want to reach out,
Yeah, likewise. If you know where to find us, we're right here. There are things at the bottom or at the top.
And there's always IPA.
There's always IPA.
Which doesn't help.
Don't, that's not a medically sanctioned. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think different things work for different people, but talking generally, in the right situation with the right person, can make such a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I'd always recommend to anybody to try and seek the appropriate professional help.
Yeah.
If that's to the point in which they feel like they're at.
Honestly, like, a lot of people want therapy, but I think there's a lot of bad therapists and there's a lot of good therapists.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to shop around.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Particularly, obviously, we have an amazing health sector here, but it's, on the mental health side of things, particularly in London, it's very tough.
Yeah.
And so, going private is often the way, and it's very expensive, and nobody's going to deny that. And you have to be very astute to who you're using, and if it's not working for you, then you've got to jump ship.
There are online apps now. There's an American one, I've forgotten what it's called, but you can get discount depending on what you pay. So I'll see if I can put a link in the video if anyone needs that.
Yep.
Check that out, please. It's just, I've not met many musicians that don't have some kind of depression.
I think it goes hand in hand with lots of artists.
Creativity. I think it gives you a greater knowledge of pain and love and joy and sadness. It just makes you, I think it doesn't make you feel more, but I think you're more aware of sometimes certain levels of depth of feeling and how that impacts stuff around you, and I think that makes it easier sometimes to express things, and that's what we do, we communicate. Yeah. Okay, what's the next card?
Okay.
The Stranger.
Yep.
This is just so, like, I just feel like I'm reading lyrics at this point.
A bit crazy.
Yeah, 30. I mean, the first thing I think of is shows. You're surrounded by strangers.
Yeah.
Okay. In shadow, making an entrance in a doorway, stands a character whose sex is ambivalent. The stranger perhaps symbolises that part of our nature that we've shut out, that is now entering in a surprising way. It is the equivalent to the anima or animus, the excluded part of our psyche that is the opposite sex to our own. It can also stand for any person we have underrated or neglected, who could prove themselves a force in our lives. Represented here is also the caution and apprehension we feel towards the new people in our lives initially.
Prostate.
From the prostate to the initial. There we go, the stranger.
Yeah.
It's quite a profound card.
That is. I was trying to sort of, as you say it, sort of understand the text there.
You're welcome to read it if you want. It's quite a long paragraph.
It's quite a long one.
Yeah.
I'm quite a slow reader, so I'll only read 10 minutes.
Alright, we'll have to fill this 10 minutes.
Yeah. Stands a character whose sex is ambivalent. Androgyny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a heavy one. Yeah, like, you know, it is the equivalent to the anima or animus, the excluded part of our psyche that is of opposite sex to our own. Right. Okay. Well, one thing that springs to mind is I remember as a kid hearing the Stranger song by Leonard Cohen, which is off his first record, the songs of Leonard Cohen, and how that deeply resonated with me with a notion of wanting to kind of be that absent figure, you know, but also in a weird way needing to get on stage and sort of have a few hundred people looking at you for some fucking weird reason, and there's that conflict of, you know, I shall not let you in, however I want everybody to be aware, you know, so I don't know, it's difficult to decode that card, as you say. It's quite complex, but I do feel like I kind of like feel like in a kind of romantic way I'd like to be that stranger, maybe, I don't know.
Do you like the idea of even not being in the room and people feeling that you're not there, and like sometimes when someone's not there, people think of them more, not necessarily positively, but they think of them the way that I think of someone who's not with me is almost like I almost appreciate the connection I have with them more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you feel like in not being there, you're kind of being loved in a way?
But the only thing that springs to mind with that difficult question to answer,
I was gonna have to answer it.
no, is to do with quite sort of unpleasant thing, really, which is that I always think about how you may or may not be perceived when you have your funeral, you know, and who would turn up, and how it would be that they feel, and particularly with anybody that suffered sort of within the depression arena, and if it gets to that unfortunate level of suicidal idealization, you know, one does think, well, if I was to go down that path, then I want to completely orchestrate the way people feel about me, you know, and so therefore you are the departed, therefore you are the stranger in that sense, you're no longer there. Maybe that's more the departed, I don't know, not so much actually, but it's a difficult one. But I would say that the main thing from what your question was, sprung to mind, is to do with the idea of wanting to almost control what people feel about you in your absence.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you feel like that would be easier to do in a positive way than being in their presence?
Not in a positive way, probably. Well, actually, maybe not in a positive way, more in a kind of idealised way. You know, again, the sort of, I'm trying not to come across as too much of a narcissist, but like, you know, you do want to give yourself to people as a musician, as an artist, in a way that's like, can you try and understand what I'm trying to put here? And like, it's for you a lot of the time. Sometimes it's for me, and you can get something out of it. And with that Stranger song with you know, Leonard Cohen, when you think about what he was conveying there, you know, that was a gift, you know, for people to have. That was not an esoteric, individualistic thing. You know, it's like, here's my expression. I am going to be departed from you when you consume it in an ideal world. But I want you to feel something, and I want you to get it. You know, but it's very alone.
Sorry to interrupt. It's really interesting because it goes back to the voyeurism angle you were talking about with voices, because that's almost like bridging that gap of how you're perceived in your absence. It's like directly relating to that as a concept. So that's like really interesting how I think that ties into what you've already been saying to a degree.
Yeah, and I think that's that fascination with the kind of characters that we've conjured up with voices, you know, and obviously the most obvious example of that for anyone that has listened to the records is that there's, you know, within London, and the narrative and the protagonist, the vicarious lover, which is
I was thinking of that the whole time. Yeah.
It's a direct rip-off, or should we say lifted from, Graham Greene's The End of the Affair. One of the chapters in his book is called The Vicarious Lover, as in the book within the book.
Yeah.
Of Maurice Bendrix, the main character. But yeah, as you say, that kind of detachment is a thing. It's a complete theme. And I think Voices is probably the best example of our collective works, where it's like, it's both personal, but it's very fucking detached as well. You know, it's that conflict, and that's really interesting, and I'm really proud of some of when we hit it right. Yeah. So I'm really proud of some of those works. I mean, I think, like, you know, a song like The Vicarious Lover, you know, and David's lyrics for that, and some of my lyrics for it, because that was a mixture of both of our two lyrics. You know, Pete's very open, very emotional lyrics that he comes up with. The opening track, The Suicide Note, to name but a few. Actually, probably my favourite song that Voices have ever recorded is Footsteps, which is a song by Pete, which is the last song on Frightened. And you listen to that, and that is totally him.
It feels like an 80s movie, that song.
Yeah. Well, that's his mindset. He lives in the 80s movies. He's just like, you know, yeah, he's totally like, you know, completely in an 80s movie, that guy. So, you know, but it's both him, but also a kind of like different, more kind of profound level of emotional intensity that even he can't, you know, reflect. You know. So yeah, you know, I can't remember what we were talking about now. Was it about beer?
Yeah, that's like, I feel this card can apply to pretty much every card. It can apply to the libido, it can apply to the funeral of your death, the stranger of, you know, getting to know your own art sometimes. Like, do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like how it changes over time and how people receive it. It changes sometimes the way that you can see your own music. And you know, the tower.
Detachment,
for sure. You know, you've got all of the Sam Loynes in that one card, and it's interesting because you were talking about how, you know, you're with the sexuality as well. You're exploring the opposite to yourself, and the stranger is your opposite, and it's also androgynous as well. So it's like in terms of like gender and sexuality, it's an undiscovered unworld. I don't know. It's another detached part.
Yeah.
It is the very nature of your detachment. Okay, it's one more card. What's it going to be?
Okay.
Work. Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
The final, you know, thorn in my side.
Oh man, the final one. What are the other thorns?
Yeah.
Okay.
Few others.
And a few, like a Christ figure on the cross, crucified by. Okay. Number 8, a pattern of interconnecting wheels and cogs that make up some complex antique machine, but with one small cutting-edged wheel untouched by the rest. This card stands for our jobs, our place in the economic world, reflecting that aspect of the world of work which is impersonal, deadening, and inhuman, yet can affect us personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is strange how everything does relate, and as a final afterthought, work is that for me, basically, and I definitely always try to do a really good job at my day-to-day job, and I'm lucky enough just to be able to have to work part-time, and that is a choice, you know, and basically I do like to work. I'm not anti-work at all, you know, but it has to run alongside the creative pursuit. And to be honest with you, all my work at my kind of professional career within any institution has just been to support my own musical pursuit, basically. In an ideal world, of course, I don't want to have to do that, you know. But I've, particularly within the sort of London environment and culture, I've whittled it down to the very bare minimum to what I can do in order to survive. You know, and I'm very lucky to have a good job that pays my way that I only have to do half of the week, you know, and the rest of the half of the week plus those extra days, to be honest, because I don't really rest that much, are dedicated to music. So it's a means to an end for me. Yeah.
Would you ever consider, like, would you want to work in a music industry job, or would you find that could possibly deaden?
Yeah, I would actually. Yeah, I think, like, you know, there's been times where I've kind of thought, well, why don't I start my own PR company or agency or this, that, and the other, booking and la-di-da, because I've been so sort of on the ground with that, with all the bands, but I've never really got it off the ground. It's a very difficult industry to get up off the ground, as I'm sure you'll, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're a musician or the business side of things, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's got to a point now really where I actually started to perceive, and this is like, I don't mean this in a detrimental way at all, but my musical output and time that I spend throughout the week on music, I do now perceive as work. You know, there's that whole thing of like, oh, I've never perceived it as work. You know, just because you're kind of enjoying what you're doing, and because it, you know, it's this amazing pursuit creatively. And it's like, well, actually, you know what? That's more work of what I, you know, want to constitute as work than this other kind of bullshit that I do just to make money. It's like, that's make money. This is work. But obviously, that's work as well. But you can see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I view like a day job or a job where you're working for someone else essentially as like prostituting your time.
Yeah.
Because you are selling your body to be with them doing what they want in that moment.
Yeah.
So really, like, the economy is just OnlyFans, but without the nudity.
Yeah.
Like, essentially, we're being hired, and I think
If
sometimes
they paid me
people
more
realise
for
that.
nudity, I'd do it.
Would you start an OnlyFans?
Absolutely. It's an easy way to make a buck. Look, I did think this, like, you know, and I'm sure that there must be, like, I mean, there's a disproportionate between sort of men and women with regards to this industry, but and a you know, positive one for women, I suppose. But ultimately, you know,
You should do
that's
it.
an easy buck, isn't it?
Yeah, go for it, man.
I'll just, I mean, I don't know what sort of very small community may want to pay for this. Like,
Honestly, you'd be surprised.
do you reckon?
Yeah, I know guys who are on OnlyFans, and they make a killing.
No shit.
Why are you shaking your head?
Really?
Yeah, no, for real.
Okay.
No, it's a thing, honestly. I mean, we have more people simping for Shem than we do for me, and it's
It could
legit.
be some sort of glasses related fitting.
Yeah, perhaps.
You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
go right.
Well, your souls are reflected back into the viewer's eyes. And
But no, you know, as I say, it is a bit of that, right? You're selling your soul a little bit just to work, you know, going back to my actual job. But as I say, you know, I remember reading Werner Herzog. It was a book called Werner on Werner, or Herzog on Herzog, right? And he was like, I mean, you know that he speaks a lot of shit with his stories, but like, you know, if you filter through it, I'm sure that like probably a good 70% of it's real. And he was like, in order to finance his first few documentaries and films, he was like a fucking welder and shit in the middle of Bulgaria or whatever, right? And he's like, you just do your job in order to make the fucking film, kind of thing, you know? And that resonated with me. And never forget that kind of little anecdote in that book, although I'm paraphrasing it very, very much so. It's hard to sort of do something that you know that your heart's not fully into. And I've been at some jobs which I've never like hated any of my jobs, but like I've been at jobs which haven't been so great. Now I'm lucky and touch wood, it all stays as is. I've got a job that I actually quite like. It's very varied, and it's within a, you know, amazing London institution, Transport for London, and so, you know, that is what makes a lot of the music happen. And you've got to be modest about these things, and until the tide turns, hopefully, where I can kind of make a very modest living out of music, because that's all I need. I don't need much money at all, and I shall have to support myself and make it happen, you know? Yeah.
You're making it happen.
Yeah.
You're already doing it. You don't need an OnlyFans. You could do it for fun.
But it's easy buck though.
It is an easy yeah. You know, I agree. Like finding a job that's fulfilling, in not necessarily in the sense that the work you do is good, but the fact that it fits in with your life.
Totally.
That's you
Big
know, I'm
deal.
lucky enough to
Big
have that.
fucking deal.
Yeah, like
cool.
it's great. Yeah, it's great. That's it's a really good.
It's difficult in London, particularly.
Oh my god, fuck London.
Yeah, I know.
I love it, but I hate it.
Me too.
Yeah, sorry, it's a pretty obvious thing to say.
It is a highly love-hate relationship, and now I've been here. I don't know. Have you been here?
I was born here.
Yeah, I thought so.
I've been here
And
my
it's the
whole
same
life.
with you, right? And if you're obviously not originally from London, but
I was born in Westminster.
oh right,
I was born in Peckham.
there you go.
Yeah.
So it's 10 or 11 years for me here.
Did you come up from Somerset? Am I imagining that?
No, not at all. Cambridge actually.
Cambridge,
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Cambridge,
I need
yeah.
to said.
Somerset. I'm actually from Somerset. Can you hear this accent?
Yeah,
This is the like quintessential English accent.
quintessential.
To me, it's all the countryside. I'm sorry.
Nina's like, white people are all the same.
It's all the countryside outside of London.
Where are you from? Somerset.
For some reason, my
I've
memory
never
was
been
like
to fucking
Somerset.
It's so funny. Scrumpy Sam.
Oh, that's gold.
Oh fuck me! I'm so sorry.
What you're hearing here is the quintessential Cambridge.
The Queen's English.
You must educate me. As a native English person, I really know very little about. I was clearly raised in some kind of like Persian fucking like void box thing.
That sounds very interesting.
Nah, it's
That's the name of our next band.
very
Persian
interesting.
Void Box.
That's a very U-name thing to call it. Yeah, no.
But London, crikey, it just,
It's a different country.
it just I've now got to a point where, I mean, the record, London is enough of an indicator to think, it's just too much
Yeah.
for too long.
I honestly feel
You know?
deafened by it
Yeah.
at times. Like,
Yeah.
like in your soul, it's like the boot at the end of 1984 sometimes, just
Yeah.
repeatedly stamping on your skull. Like, I saw someone die on a tube train on the way to
Oh,
work
really?
once, and
Oh
that
my
made me
God.
quit my city job. Like, that's my London
Fuck
right
me.
there. Yeah, you see people like overdosing on trains, and like
Right.
there's not a day that goes by, especially here, without someone
Yeah.
going crazy. Or
Yeah.
but there's there's beauty in it too. There's, like,
Of course,
incredible
yeah, and
beauty
it's
here.
like, it's totally the love-hate thing, and I'm still there with it, otherwise I would have moved out. I'm just one of these people that just sort of habitually complains about where they live and then doesn't do anything about it. It's like, I still do love London for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, the culture here is
Um,
incredible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in England, I think it's like, if you're going to live anywhere in England, you might as well fucking live here, unless you're like really, really into wanting to live a rural life, because there's some amazing rural spaces, but the weather's just too shit.
God, I'm cold like
It's like
90% of the year.
I'm so lucky to be part Irish, so I can get the EU passport, which is in the post.
Oh
well.
my goodness,
It's
that's
gonna
a
be like a
blessing.
fucking year or something from now.
That's
but
going to be
like,
great for touring as well.
yeah, I mean, I'm just
You'll be in high demand.
as soon as I can make it happen, I'm moving to Europe.
Oh man, please take us.
Probably south of France.
Yeah,
That's
man,
ideal.
so
that was
nice
that was
there.
kind of our
Yeah.
plan before Brexit, was to
Yeah.
move to the south of France
Yeah.
and just have like a little band enclave
Yeah.
and
I mean,
tour Europe. And
with a bit of luck, that's what's going to be in the 1 to 3 year plan from now. And even if it means like, obviously I'm just going to like move over there, but rather like spend a good portion of the year there and then come back here.
that's amazing.
you know.
And yeah, you're in proximity to all the big festivals. Hellfest, we'll see you at Hellfest
Yeah.
for sure.
To be honest with you, by that point, I probably won't even bother. I'll just fucking
You'll be
drink
drinking
drink wine and eat cheese and fuck off everything
But
else.
baguette
Never
farm.
speak to anyone again. Get a dog, that'll do.
Yeah.
We'll talk to your dog.
It's like that philosopher where people referred to his dog. He was like, he didn't have a partner, and they called his dog Mrs. Whatever his name was. Who was that?
I don't know.
The rings a bell.
Yeah, like Bruce is telling Mick up with him by referring to his dog as his wife.
So yeah, that's it's a love-hate thing with the city, and it's obviously I've met many great people, and musically speaking, it's been a hotbed for collaboration, and I'd never forget that, and I owe a debt to the city because of that. But that only goes so far.
I feel like the debt is paid.
The debt's paid.
Yeah.
Maybe even years ago now. So, it's been established. It is what it is, and I much prefer, good tasting vegetables and hot weather, and a house that you can actually buy.
Wow. Can you imagine? With bits that work.
Yeah.
You have to petition a
It's like,
faceless man to have a shower.
It's like 300 days of sunshine a year.
Get used to that.
Okay.
You could drive to Italy and...
That'll be okay.
That'd be okay.
I've not actually seen it, but I had someone referenced on a podcast I listened to about there's apparently a promo photo of the Antichrist Imperium, which you and Dave in front of a council estate, and the other two guys. I've never seen that. Is that real?
That's the best.
That sounds hilarious.
Photo shoot that we've ever done.
That is such a funny idea.
And that was done by Esther.
Esther Segara?
Yeah.
She's incredible.
She's a legend out of the sort of scene, and always used to do Akercocke photos, and very, very kindly did that Antichrist Imperium photography session, and it was out of a Elephant and Castle estate where she was living at the time, and they are the best pictures of me and Dave that will ever be, without question. It's like some fucking Duran, like gone negative shit. Like have you seen the pictures?
I think I've seen them. I'm pretty sure I saw them.
It's in her book. She's got a book out, so they're in that. But oh man, I remember when because like Dave particularly is very, very particular about his, like whenever we do photo shoots with the various bands, like he's just one of those people that doesn't like photo shoots, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I mean, I don't love them either. Few people love them, but like, I don't mind them.
They can be very stressful.
Yeah, and it's a bit like 9 times out of 10, I'm just like, okay, that looks all right, and you go with it, kind of thing. And we're lucky enough to have worked with mostly great photographers, so I just kind of entrust in their judgment. Dave's not like that fucking at all. He really entrusts in Esther, and he wasn't wrong, because it's just they had the best pictures of me and him without a doubt.
Yeah.
So
that's funny because he's such a photogenic guy. Like all of you are.
He's like Ray Fiennes.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, like even when he cut his hair, he still looked very striking, which is not something that everyone can boast that does such a thing. So,
I totally agree.
Yeah, good on you guys for being 10 out of 10.
Oh, we try.
You do.
We try.
It's good. It's nice that you're not wearing like shorts and 5-day-old band shirts on stage, I guess.
That's what I want to wear, really.
Yeah.
like Anthrax back in the day.
Yeah, man. No judgment on anyone who does. It's just it's just.
No, for us it was never the thing.
Yeah.
Like we even before I even knew who Akercocke was, or Nick Cave, or Scott Walker, or all these people that have influenced our kind of like thing. It's like we kind of just naturally dressed quite straight anyway, for want of a better phrase, and I suppose now Akercocke has moved through that, and we're sort of embracing the kind of band t-shirt thing, and like the the bullet belts and all this kind of stuff. And that's just because we're kind of like, well, we've done that other shit for years, so particularly Paul and Jason particularly, they're enjoying being a bit more casual about things, Personally, I'd actually prefer to go back to dressing like a fucking, like Lord Summerall.
Why not both? With a bullet belt. I think
Lord Summerall with a bullet belt.
I think both you and Paul should style the band at the same time and just see what happens.
Yeah.
It would be so good. I would love that so much. Yeah, because Paul dresses casual, but like, you guys dress casual but well. That's what I mean. Like, you're not like, stained and like,
Everybody does actually, now that sort of Fed's in the fold, he's learning. He's often the same, and he's got like a lot of similar kind of interesting sort of parts to his personality and interests that we instantly kind of move towards. Like he knows so much about wine, for instance.
Yeah.
Cool.
You know, and speaks a lot of different languages, which is always for me like a very interesting thing for anybody that I meet. And so yeah, you know, he's fit in very nicely. He's very energetic, as I say. You know, he's not definitely. He's probably happy that we don't wear suits anymore, though.
It's a pain if you're touring, I imagine. It's got an iron and then like.
I mean, I never really was touring with them when they were doing that really strictly. I always used to dress smart when they were kind of on the back end of dressing smart, so they weren't quite kind of doing suits and stuff. But yeah, it was always a bit more like a uniform kind of thing. And you know, to you know, having sort of spoken about this thing with the guys, they did say that, well, actually it wasn't too bad because shirts would keep you a lot cooler actually at gigs than the t-shirts sort of thing, because it's sort of full, yeah, a bit more sort of air sort of to breathe or whatever. And yeah, they would have to look after those garments, otherwise it would just look absolutely ridiculous. You know, completely creased. So it was, I suppose it's the equivalent of when, you know, black metal bands often put on the face makeup, you know, probably similar level of effort.
Yeah, it's like corpse paint, but for your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I've never asked you this, but when did you first listen? Like, how did you discover Akercocke?
It was on a Kerrang or Metal Hammer or Terrorizer CD
No
that
way.
went on the front of the magazine, and never heard of them or whatever. Corazon era, and it was, I think, Enraptured by Evil that was on there.
That is a brilliant.
And I remember
intro.
just like, you know, it was, and at the time it was obviously into Slayer, Metallica, and all the great thrash bands. Maybe some sort of like more contemporary music at the time, like System of a Down and things like this, you know, which is a bit heavier, I suppose. And then hearing that, it was like, I couldn't cope with it at all. It was like so offensive to my ears that the snare hits, you know, so constant, the blasting, all that. And I remember just being like, that's fucking so extreme. I'm really interested and really like intrigued by this, but I'm not getting any pleasure out of this kind of thing. And then I remember like almost an addiction, and I'm not really an addictive person, but almost like an addiction. I felt I have to go back and listen to that. It was
That's
like
so
a need.
interesting.
And then I remember going to HMV and looking up Akercocke because of that song, the Enraptured by Evil on the Terrorizer disc or whatever it was, and picking out the Go of Mendes, which obviously when you look at this front cover and it's like completely monochrome, really dark satanic image of a naked woman, Goat of Mendes, Akercocke spaced out in that kind of alien font, you know, rather than being the kind of like black metal kind of really illustrative dark fantasy thing, right? And I didn't know what to make of it. Put it because back in the day, you used to be able to put in CDs in HMV and listen on headphones. You guys probably remember, maybe do, maybe you don't. And I remember just like Of Menstrual Blood and Semen came on, and I just remember just being like, "This is fucking too much again." Most extreme atonal. Out there shit I've ever heard, and just not liking it, but also being totally and utterly amazed by it, basically. And again, had to go back.
Dude, it's the same for me. That's so weird.
I was addicted.
Yeah, so that's really similar because I had a similar, but smaller.
Yeah.
Like, the first, I picked up a copy of Kerrang, and Don Lawson had reviewed the Antichrist album. It was the week it came out, and I was like, who? These guys sound really weird and out there, and like repressed Asian girl what are you gonna do? You're gonna want to listen to this kind of like crazy music that you're not allowed to listen to.
Yeah.
So I went to HMV. I bought Antichrist and I put it in my Walkman. And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is disgusting. Like, who? What are they doing? It was so extreme.
Satanic.
It was extreme.
Genuinely satanic.
Yeah, and like I listened to like Verdelay, and I was like, I'm not sure. I don't think I can listen to this. I picked up System. It was the first metal I'd ever listened to. Bear that in mind. Like I hadn't listened to Slayer, hadn't listened to anything else. I picked up System of a Down and Akercocke, and they both became my favourite bands within a week.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I remember, like I think like my dad yelled at me or something. I was like 15, 16. So like I just went to my room, I put Akercocke on my Walkman, and I curled up in bed, and I listened to the entire album, and I was like, this is good. This is great. Like oh my god, this, and I just listened to everything they did. It was incredible. Yeah.
Well, I still get a sense of that fan thing, like. It's so odd to say it, but I don't mind saying it. It's just like when we're in the rehearsal space and I've heard, Horns of Baphomet, like 15,000 times. I can sit back and just enjoy watching these guys play it.
Yeah.
And I love the music still.
That's amazing.
And as I say to Jason, as much as I can, particularly when we've had a few drinks. Whatever, it's like it is a pleasure and an honour to play with the band, and that from a purely musical sense. We're just friends like we are, whatever, that's a different issue. But musically speaking, it's still that thing,
Sorry to chime in again, but like when the fact that you play guitar as well, and like to be so close to seeing like those guys playing guitar, they're like artisans. Like when you're a musician, you go to a concert, you see certain people play, and like you're just watching the guy play guitar.
Yeah.
And it's a different, and it's the same thing, and like you get to be close to that. Like I'm completely hypnotised whenever I see Echo. Cool. Like watching Dave play drums, watching them play guitar.
Honestly,
like,
I was just watching. I'm not just like necessarily listening. I'm watching you guys play.
Yeah, good.
And like, cause like
I used to do that.
Different show. I'd be like, where am I going to stand today? Well, I'm going to stand in front of Scanners and watch him do his amazing thing on the guitar, or am I going to stand in front of you and be like, what cool movements?
Plug in my thing if it's
helping you. Am I going to stand like so I can see Dave's feet just going like this? This is not accurate. But yeah, like it's just.
I think Jason and David have like a real thing. Like if you notice, like that. I mean, we all have a thing, but like that is the anchor between those two.
It's those two personalities, isn't it? Yeah.
I see you guys all look at each other on stage sometimes,
and
like,
you don't know what the fuck's going on.
I remember like the first show, the reunion show, the way you guys were looking at each other.
Christ.
It was so fucking emotional.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. That was the sold out show in London, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jason didn't cry at that show.
It was intense.
Yeah.
That gig was intense, but everybody involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I might have maybe shed a slight amount of water. From
it was like fucking. I don't know if I sound stupid to say it, but it was like a religious experience. Like it's probably the closest thing I'll ever have. Because it was something different.
Stock show which was just shit.
Really?
Yeah,
oh
rubbish.
Man.
Like obviously, people were happy with it, in terms of fans and stuff, and that's great and that's really, really good. But like as a band, like, and I wasn't even playing that show, but like it was just nobody could get it together, and it was this huge stage and all the rest of it. Then we came home to the Underworld.
Yeah.
And it was like, we rehearsed better, and obviously I was doing keys and it was all tied together, and obviously, as I say, they realised that they were shit without me. Just as well.
It's great because like I feel like for a really long time you were the biggest Akercocke fan I knew.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
you were the perfect person.
Yeah, that was it. And like now I realise that I'm really not the biggest Akercocke fan, because there are fans out there that like, oh, holy shit. Maybe the biggest Akercocke fan in the world is actually this amazing individual that we work with on most of our gigs, a guy called Jason, or Yasana, as he's known in his Greek tongue, because he is from Greek. Greece.
Sorry.
He is a Greek. From the land of Greece.
I love it.
Yeah. But he never likes to be called Yasana for some bloody reason.
Oh.
Anyway. the land of Greek. And but he knows everything about the fucking band, like to the point of where he goes, oh yeah, that was that one. You played that one song in Woking in 2001, and it was the only time we ever played that song. You're like, what? But he knows, and he is Dave's drum tech mostly, but he just helps out the whole operation, and is as key to the band as any member of the band.
That's an intimidating job, being Dave's drum tech.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Because Dave doesn't know what's going on with his drums.
Really?
No. He would quite openly say this. Like, he is just like, he's not the guy that can organise the drums.
Oh, because there's so much like triggers.
Well, there's a lot of
stuff.
the drums for a start, so it is actually quite a complex setup anyway. So you can't blame him from that perspective. But like more that he is just so immersed within just the playing, that he just doesn't know how to set up his fucking drum kit.
That's
so like half the time, so Yasuna, Jason, he knows it back to front. So whenever Jason isn't there to help Dave has a bit of a harder time, to be honest with you. You know, from a performative level. Although he gets on, he's long enough in the tooth to be able to deal with it when he's not there. But like, in an ideal world, you know, it's that the first thing you book a gig, first thing you do, ring up Yasuna and be like, are you free on this day? And he's like, fuck yeah, like 9 times out of 10.
Incredible.
You know what I mean? He's one of the backbone figures of the band.
That's amazing.
And he's one of the loveliest people you'll ever meet.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
If I see someone that I don't know what he looks like, but if I see someone say Yasuna and Akercocke gig, I'm going to find him.
Yeah, dude.
And
you get on
hello.
very well. You get on
I'm
very
sure.
well. He's awesome. Yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you so much
Nice
for
one.
letting me ask you questions about death and sex and tits and Satan.
So what other kind of
Do you wanna-
themes are there? Because this is crazily like in exactly as it almost should be.
I know, right? I mean, do you want to do the biggest spread?
You can
We can
add
just-
the ones to the extremes, no?
Go on.
I can
then.
show you. So
Yeah.
you need to do 2 here.
Yeah.
I'll just do it in the order.
Go on then.
Alright. Then we can turn them over at the same time.
Oh yeah, sounds good.
Well, then we need to explain the relevance of the left and the right, yes.
Yeah. Go on.
So 10. You put 1 card here.
And one card there. Yeah.
This one, and then it's a weird order. So you put 1 card here first. Ah, I knew you'd get the voyage.
And it's the other way
Then
around.
next one.
Face down, this next one.
Face down.
Yeah.
Oh, Shem is a stickler for the rules, which I like. Hang on, let me just make sure it's the right amount. Yeah, and then this one. This one. Sorry.
Ready? Are you ready?
And then
Oh, there's an under one.
1 on top,
Yeah.
1 on the bottom. So to put into perspective before we turn,
Yeah.
all this stuff is supposed to be what's coming towards you and happening.
This region here.
Yeah, everything
Okay,
close to the
yeah.
Inquirer is
Yeah.
close to you. These are
Yeah.
the things that like most closely inform you. So we have like the core of you, and then here is like the voyage. All this other stuff is going to be happening to you.
Okay.
This is your underlying driving force. So this is what pushes you forward,
Yeah.
and this is your goal.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where you want to be going, and hopefully will be going. So if you want to flip them over, it was this one, then this one. You can flip this over now. We'll do them all in order.
So the voyage and then.
Peace.
Fucking hell, this is crazy, man.
This
Go on.
one next. I guess that's you moving to the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Tree, laying down roots. Next. Ooh,
Mother.
that's always a big one.
She doesn't want to say it because it's going to freak me out. Go on. What?
And then this is next, and this is where you want to go, so your goals. Oh,
What's that say?
this is never.
Never.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And then this is what's driving you forward. Liberation.
Well, that's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah?
Well, it seems weird that it should be the voyage, and then setting down the routes, right? That's
Yeah.
pretty crazy because there is a change imminent.
I see.
and then peace, right?
Yeah.
Which is what I'm kind of searching for. To be honest.
Precisely, and you're talking about as well, I guess, a sense of connection is probably something you're looking for when we talk about the libido,
Right.
and you wanted you were talking about long-term connections.
So this doesn't mean I'm going to have kids then.
I don't know.
Well,
Maybe you're going to have a mother.
Right.
It could be a partner. It could be.
For a minute, I thought that's what that meant.
Maybe it does.
It can.
It could.
Okay.
It could mean lots of different things. I mean,
But
you've
then,
got the
then
tree.
the next one was never.
Never. That's a pretty weird one.
That's
These are
interesting.
decision cards.
Yeah.
We leave them in because they're spicy and make you think.
Hmm.
So never. Let me quickly read it. So usually, if you have something you're thinking about as a decision, never like this could be an answer to that.
Yeah.
So this means a bleak outlook, the possibility of failure, and the denial of fulfillment. So this could be movement. Being able to buy a house or go to France or not staying in London, not being able to.
Yeah. Yeah. And then finally,
Liberation.
which seems like quite a fitting kind of escape plan.
The interesting thing about that card is that in the description, the prison door has no lock. So it was always open the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of realizing that you're sometimes restricting yourself.
I think that's reasonable to say. Yeah. I'm glad we did the sort of, and it's quite nice doing it in that kind of quick way in the end there.
Yeah, I think we'll do this more in
Like
future.
a kind of like a bulk information and then
It's like shooting you
turnaround.
with a shotgun of
Yeah.
like psychological.
fuckery.
Yeah, fuckery. That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Well, that was good.
Thank you so much for allowing me to delve
you.
deep into your psyche.
Oh, yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, you seem shaken.
No, well, that was quite an interesting last little turnaround for that bit there. Yeah. Yeah, nice though.
I think it's positive overall for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What we usually
Yeah.
do at this point is take a picture of this,
Yeah.
take a picture of us as well.
Sounds great.
I mean, what?
No stopping them.
Oh, I mean, if you want to.
No, you just saying that like.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good
Yeah, that was
segue.
good. Yeah.